Emma Walsh pushed through the revolving doors of Harrison Technologies, her arms aching from the weight of the industrial vacuum cleaner she'd been pushing for the past 4 hours. The November air bit at her face, a sharp contrast to the overheated offices she'd just left behind. At 34 years old, she looked older. Worry had carved lines around her eyes that shouldn't have been there for another decade. She set down her equipment and pulled out her phone. 9:47 p.m. Her heart sank. She'd missed tucking in 7-year-old Sophie again. This was the third night this week. "I'm sorry, baby," she whispered to the cracked screen showing Sophie's gap-toothed smile as her wallpaper. Emma worked 3 jobs to keep their small apartment and put food on the table. During the day, she cleaned office buildings downtown. 3 evenings a week, she stocked shelves at a 24-hour grocery store. And on weekends, she worked at a diner, serving coffee and pancakes to families who didn't know how lucky they were to sit together on a Saturday morning. Her daughter Sophie had been born premature, with lungs that struggled and a heart that needed monitoring. The medical bills had destroyed Emma's marriage, or rather, they'd revealed what her marriage really was. When Sophie was 2, Emma's husband David had left, unable to handle the stress, the sleepless nights, the endless hospital visits. He'd sent exactly 3 child support payments before disappearing entirely. "You're stronger than this," he'd said the night he left. As if Emma had a choice in being strong. Tonight had been particularly hard. Emma had been cleaning the executive floor of Harrison Technologies when she'd overheard a meeting through a partially open conference room door. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She'd been trying to be invisible, as good cleaning staff should be, but the voices had been raised, angry, desperate. What she'd heard had made her blood run cold. Now, as she gathered her things to head home, she noticed someone rushing out of the building behind her. A tall man in expensive suit, phone pressed to his ear, grabbed a coat from the rack near the entrance without looking. It was her coat, the threadbare navy peacoat she'd bought from Goodwill 3 winters ago. He was already halfway down the street when Emma realized he'd left behind a beautiful charcoal wool coat, far too expensive for someone like her to even touch. She should have just left it. Should have gone home to her daughter, fallen into bed for 5 hours before her grocery store shift started at 4 a.m. She had enough problems without getting involved in the lives of wealthy executives who didn't even see people like her. But Emma had been raised by a mother who cleaned houses and a father who worked construction, and they taught her one thing above all else. Character is what you do when no one is watching. She picked up the expensive coat, feeling its weight, its quality. There was a wallet in the inside pocket. She pulled it out carefully. Michael Harrison, CEO. Her hands trembled as she looked at his driver's license photo. This was the man she'd heard in that conference room. The man whose company was about to make a decision that would hurt so many people, just like her. Emma stood on that cold sidewalk, holding a coat and a choice. She could walk away, take her own coat back tomorrow, return his coat to the front desk, and pretend she'd never heard anything. She could protect herself, protect Sophie, stay invisible and safe, or she could do something that might cost her everything. In the distance, she could see the CEO had realized his mistake. He'd stopped under a streetlight, looking down at the coat in confusion. She watched him start to turn back. Emma took a deep breath, thinking of Sophie's innocent face, of the medication they needed, of the rent due in 6 days. Then she thought of her parents, of the values they'd instilled in her, of the person she wanted her daughter to become. She started walking toward him, clutching both coats, her heart pounding with a decision she couldn't take back. "Excuse me, sir." Michael Harrison turned at the voice, his mind still racing through the disastrous conference call he'd just finished. The board was pressuring him to approve the merger with Donovan Industries, despite the reports his team had uncovered about their environmental violations and unsafe labor practices. The deal would make Harrison Technologies billions, but at what cost? He looked down at the woman approaching him, mid-30s, tired eyes, wearing a cleaning company uniform under a thin jacket. She was holding 2 coats. "I think you took my coat by mistake," she said quietly, holding out the navy peacoat. Michael looked down at what he was holding and felt his face flush with embarrassment. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was distracted." He reached for his coat, noticing how she handled it with careful reverence, as if it might break. "It's fine," Emma said, taking back her own worn coat. "Honest mistake. This should have been the end of it." A simple exchange, both parties moving on with their lives. But Emma didn't move. She stood there, the streetlight casting shadows across her face, clearly struggling with something. "Is there something else?" Michael asked, checking his watch. He needed to call his lawyers, figure out how to handle the board, maybe still make it home for his daughter's birthday tomorrow, if he worked through the night. Emma's hands tightened on her coat. "Mr. Harrison, I need to tell you something. And I know it's not my place, but—" She paused, seeming to gather courage. "I'm a cleaner at your building. Tonight, while I was working on the executive floor, I overheard a meeting." Michael felt ice settle in his stomach. "What meeting?" "The one about the Donovan merger," Emma said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I heard them talking about falsified safety reports, about covering up violations at the Riverside facility, about how they planned to hide it all until after the merger went through." The world seemed to stop. Michael stared at this woman, this stranger who had no reason to care about his company, his reputation, his problems. You heard all that?" he managed. Emma nodded. "I wasn't trying to listen. The door was cracked and I was just doing my job. But once I heard what they were saying, I couldn't just—" She shook her head. "Those facilities, the Riverside one they mentioned, that's in my neighborhood. My daughter's school is 2 blocks from there. There are hundreds of families, children." Michael's mind was reeling. The senior partners at Donovan had assured him everything was in compliance. They'd shown him reports, certifications, audits. If what this woman was saying was true, if they'd been lying, "Why are you telling me this?" he asked. "You could just— no one would know you heard anything." Emma looked at him with eyes that had seen too much hardship, too much struggle. "Because I have a 7-year-old daughter who asks me every day why I have to work so much, why we can't afford the things other kids have. And every time I tell her it's because we do the right thing, even when it's hard, even when it costs us." She took a breath, and Michael could see her hand shaking. "I can't tell her that, and then stay silent when I know something that could hurt other people's children. I can't teach her to have integrity and then throw mine away because it's convenient." Michael felt something crack open in his chest. When was the last time someone had spoken to him about doing the right thing instead of the profitable thing? When was the last time he'd let his own integrity guide his decisions instead of his shareholders' expectations? "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma Walsh." "Emma, do you realize what you're risking by telling me this? If the wrong people found out you were listening to confidential meetings, I could lose my job," Emma finished. "I know. I've been thinking about nothing else for the past 20 minutes. But Mr. Harrison, if you go through with this merger and those violations come out later, and they always come out, it won't just be about money. It'll be about lives, real people, families like mine who can't afford to move when their neighborhood becomes toxic." Michael looked at this woman who had every reason to protect herself, to stay silent, to let the wealthy and powerful make their mistakes without interference. Instead, she'd risked everything to do what was right. "You have a daughter?" he asked. Emma's face softened. "Sophie, she's 7. She wants to be a scientist." A sad smile crossed her face. "She's so smart, Mr. Harrison. But she has health issues, medical bills we can barely manage. I work 3 jobs just to keep her in her treatments. Losing even one of them would be—" She didn't finish the sentence. Michael felt shame wash over him. Here he was, worried about billions in profit, while this woman fought every day just to keep her child healthy and safe. "Emma," he said carefully, "would you be willing to tell me exactly what you heard? Every detail?" She looked uncertain. "Are you going to do something about it?" Michael thought about the board, the shareholders, the easy billions waiting if he just ignored this. Then he thought about his own daughter, Caroline, turning 12 tomorrow. What kind of man did he want her father to be? "Yes," he said. "I'm going to do something about it. But I need your help." 3 days later, Emma sat in a conference room she'd only ever cleaned, never imagined she'd occupy. Michael Harrison sat across from her, along with the company's head of legal affairs and chief compliance officer. Ms. Walsh, the lawyer, Janet Chen, said gently, "We need you to walk us through exactly what you heard, in as much detail as possible." Emma had called in sick to her grocery store job for this meeting. She couldn't afford to lose the hours, but Michael had promised to compensate her for her time. Still, as she sat in that leather chair, she felt completely out of place. It was around 8 p.m. on Monday, Emma began. I was cleaning the conference room on the executive floor. The door was mostly closed, but not latched. I heard raised voices, so I was going to come back later, but then I heard them mention Riverside. She described how she'd heard 3 men. She later learned they were senior executives from Donovan Industries discussing falsified environmental reports. They'd talked about covering up lead contamination in the water supply near one of their manufacturing facilities. The Riverside facility had been cited for violations 3 times, but the reports had been altered before being submitted to regulators. They laughed about it, Emma said, her voice tight with anger. One of them said, "Once Harrison's money is in, they'll be just as liable as we are. They'll have to help cover it up." And another one said, "By the time anyone figures it out, we'll have cashed out and moved on." The room was silent. Michael's jaw was clenched so tight Emma could see the muscle jumping. "You're absolutely certain of what you heard, Mr. Harrison? I've spent 7 years memorizing every word my daughter's doctors say because I can't afford to forget anything that might help her. I'm certain." Janet Chen made a note. "Emma, what you've described is securities fraud, environmental crimes, and conspiracy. If we pursue this, you may need to testify. Are you prepared for that?" Emma thought of Sophie, sleeping peacefully last night, unaware that her mother was about to potentially upend their entire lives. "If it means stopping them from poisoning my neighborhood, yes." Over the next week, Michael's team launched a quiet investigation. They discovered that Emma's account matched up with inconsistencies they'd found in Donovan's documentation. They hired independent environmental consultants who confirmed elevated lead levels near the Riverside facility levels that should have triggered mandatory cleanup years ago. But exposing the fraud meant walking away from the biggest deal in Harrison Technologies' history. It meant potential lawsuits, angry shareholders, and billions in lost revenue. The board called an emergency meeting. "You're going to tank a $12 billion merger because of something a cleaning lady claims she overheard?" one board member demanded. Emma, listening from Michael's office where he'd asked her to wait, felt the words like a slap. "That cleaning lady has more integrity than anyone in this room." Michael's voice came through the door, sharp as glass. "She risked her livelihood to report fraud. Meanwhile, we're sitting here debating whether we should look the other way while children are poisoned. It's not that simple, Michael. It absolutely is that simple." Michael's voice rose. "We have proof of environmental crimes. We have evidence of falsified safety reports. And you want me to pretend I don't know because the numbers look good?" Emma heard chairs scraping, voices overlapping. Through the door's small window, she could see Michael standing, his hands flat on the conference table. "My daughter Caroline asked me this morning what it means to be a good person," he said, his voice quieter now but firm. "I'm not going to tell her it means looking the other way when you know something is wrong. I'm not building the company that profits from poisoning neighborhoods. You're risking everything we've built." "No," Michael interrupted. "I'm protecting everything we've built. Harrison Technologies was founded on innovation and integrity. My father started this company because he wanted to create something meaningful. I won't dishonor that by becoming the kind of person who values profit over people's lives." There was a long silence. Finally, the chairman spoke. "If we walk away from this merger, what happens to Donovan's violations? They'll just cover it up better next time." "Not if we go public with what we know," Michael said. "We report it to the EPA, to the SEC, to every regulatory body that has jurisdiction. We make sure they can't hide it anymore." Emma felt tears prick her eyes. She'd been so afraid he would choose the money, that her courage would be for nothing. The meeting ended an hour later. The board had voted, reluctantly, to support Michael's decision. The merger was dead. Within 24 hours, Harrison Technologies would file formal complaints with federal regulators about Donovan Industries' environmental violations. Michael found Emma still waiting in his office. She stood quickly, nervously. "It's done," he said. "We're walking away from the deal and reporting everything to the authorities." Emma's knees felt weak. "You really did it?" "Because of you," Michael said. "Emma, you need to understand this company is going to take a significant financial hit. Our stock will drop. We'll face criticism, but we're alive because you had the courage to speak up." "What happens now?" Emma asked. "Now," Michael said. "We make sure this never happens again, and we make sure you're protected." But neither of them knew that the real challenges were just beginning. The backlash came faster than Emma had expected. Within 48 hours of Harrison Technologies pulling out of the merger and filing regulatory complaints, the story hit the business news. And while most outlets praised Michael's integrity, others painted a different picture, one of a CEO who'd cost his company billions based on unverified claims from a low-level employee. Emma's name was kept confidential in official filings, but in a company of over 2,000 employees, secrets didn't stay secret for long. On Friday evening, as Emma was finishing her cleaning shift, her supervisor called her into the office. "Emma, I need to talk to you about something serious," Patricia said, closing the door. She was a kind woman in her 50s who'd always been fair to Emma. Emma's heart sank. "What is it?" "You know, I think you're one of the best workers we have," Patricia began, and Emma's stomach twisted because that's how these conversations always started. "But I got a call today from someone at Harrison Technologies. Not HR, someone from their facilities management. They said there have been complaints about your work quality." "What?" Emma's voice cracked. "That's not true. I've never had a single complaint in 3 years." "I know," Patricia said quickly. "That's why I'm telling you this isn't coming from me. But Emma, these are powerful people. If someone over there wants you gone, there's not much I can do to protect you." Emma felt the room spin. "They're retaliating. Because I reported what I heard." Patricia looked pained. "I didn't say that. I can't say that. All I can tell you is that your employment here is going to be reevaluated at the end of the month." 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks before she lost one of her 3 incomes. That night, Emma sat at her small kitchen table, surrounded by bills she couldn't pay. Sophie was asleep in the next room, oblivious to the crisis unfolding. Emma had $1,200 in savings, enough for maybe 1 month of rent and utilities, but not medications, not food, not the specialist appointment Sophie needed next month. Her phone rang. Michael Harrison. "Emma, I just heard what happened with your cleaning position," he said without preamble. "This is retaliation, and it's illegal." "Legal or not, they're going to fire me," Emma said, too tired to keep the bitterness from her voice. "And even if I sue, that takes time and money I don't have. Sophie needs her medications next week. We need to eat. I can't fight this." "You're not fighting it alone," Michael said firmly. "I'm having our legal team look into whistleblower protections, Mr. Harrison," Emma interrupted. "With all due respect, lawyers don't pay my rent. I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I have a daughter who depends on me. I can't afford to be brave anymore." There was a long pause. "What if I offered you a job?" Michael asked. Emma laughed, a harsh sound. "Doing what?" "I clean offices and stock shelves. I don't have a degree." "You have something more valuable than a degree," Michael said. "You have integrity, and you have perspective that everyone in my company needs. Emma, I want to create a new position, Director of Ethics and Corporate Responsibility, someone who makes sure we never even come close to the situation we just avoided." Emma was stunned into silence. "The salary would be $85,000 a year," Michael continued. "Full benefits, including health insurance that would cover Sophie's needs. I know it's not a perfect solution, but..." "Wait," Emma said, her mind reeling. "You're offering me a job making..." She couldn't even finish the sentence. That was more than twice what she made working 3 jobs combined. "You saved this company from making a catastrophic mistake," Michael said. "And more than that, you reminded me what this company is supposed to stand for. I need someone like you, Emma. Someone who isn't afraid to speak truth to power." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I don't know anything about corporate ethics. You know the most important thing, how to do the right thing when it's hard. I can teach you the rest." But even as hope bloomed in Emma's chest, doubt crept in. "Mr. Harrison, I appreciate this more than you know, but I'm scared. What if I can't do it? What if I let you down?" "Emma," Michael said gently, "you've already proven you have more courage than most people I know. Trust yourself." After they hung up, Emma sat in her quiet apartment for a long time. She thought about her parents, who'd worked their fingers to the bone but always kept their dignity. She thought about Sophie, sleeping peacefully in the next room, dreaming of becoming a scientist. She thought about the woman she wanted to be. not just for herself, but for her daughter. The next morning, Emma called Michael and accepted the position. But she made him one promise. "I'll take this job on one condition. If I ever see something wrong, even if it costs me everything, I'm going to speak up. That can't change." "I wouldn't want it any other way," Michael replied. What Emma didn't know was that the hardest test of her integrity was still to come. 6 months into her new role, Emma had transformed. The exhausted, overworked single mother was still there. She'd never forget where she came from. But now she wore professional clothes, sat in meetings with executives, and had a voice that people actually listened to. Sophie's health had stabilized with better insurance and consistent treatment. They'd moved to a safer apartment closer to a better school. For the first time in years, Emma could breathe without the constant weight of survival crushing her chest. But comfort, she was learning, brought its own dangers. In late spring, Harrison Technologies faced a new crisis. A key supplier in their manufacturing chain had been accused of labor violations, forced overtime, unsafe conditions, workers afraid to report injuries. The evidence was circumstantial. The accusations came from a single anonymous whistleblower. The supplier, Chen Manufacturing, denied everything and threatened to sue for defamation if Harrison Technologies pulled their contract. Without Chen Manufacturing, Harrison Technologies would face production delays that could cost them hundreds of millions and jeopardize their relationship with their largest client. The executive team was divided. "We can't make decisions based on unverified accusations," the CFO argued in a meeting Emma attended. "We have no proof, and if we're wrong, we destroy our production timeline and a business relationship we've built over 15 years. But if we're right and we do nothing, we're complicit," the head of operations countered. All eyes turned to Emma. "Ms. Walsh," the CFO said, "you're our ethics officer. What's your recommendation?" Emma felt the weight of the moment. She thought about 6 months ago, standing on a cold street corner with a coat in her hands and a choice to make. That choice had changed her life, given her daughter security, given her a future she'd never dreamed possible. Walking away from Chen Manufacturing meant risking all of it. "We investigate," Emma said quietly. "Thoroughly, independently, and quickly. We don't make accusations, but we also don't ignore potential violations just because they're inconvenient." "That could take weeks," the CFO protested. "We need Chen's components in production by—" "Then we work fast," Emma interrupted, finding strength in her voice. "But we work right." Michael, who'd been silent until now, nodded. "Emma's right. We investigate. I'll personally oversee it." Over the next 3 weeks, Emma and Michael worked with an independent auditing firm to investigate Chen Manufacturing. They interviewed workers, examined records, reviewed safety protocols. What they found was worse than they'd feared. Workers were routinely forced to work 16-hour shifts. Safety equipment was inadequate. Several workers had suffered injuries but were threatened with termination if they filed reports. The conditions weren't quite illegal. The supplier had carefully skirted just inside the boundaries of local labor laws, but they were unconscionable. "It's not technically in violation," the auditor told them, "but morally, this is exploitation." Emma sat in Michael's office looking at the report. "What do we do?" "We have 3 options," Michael said. 1. We can do nothing. They're technically in compliance. 2. We can quietly pressure them to improve conditions, but maintain the relationship. 3. We can sever the contract and find a new supplier. What happens if we choose option 3? We delay production by at least 6 months. We potentially lose our biggest client. We take a massive financial hit. Michael rubbed his face tiredly. "Emma, I meant what I said 6 months ago about integrity, but I also have a responsibility to this company, to our employees, to our shareholders." Emma thought about her own journey from 3 jobs and struggling to survive, to this moment where she could actually make a difference. She thought about the workers at Chen Manufacturing, fighting every day just like she used to. "Mr. Ice, Harrison," she said, "when you offered me this job, you said you needed someone who wasn't afraid to speak truth to power, someone who would do the right thing even when it was hard. I know what I said. Then here's the truth. If we stay with Chen Manufacturing, we're saying that our profit matters more than those workers' dignity. We're saying that exploitation is okay as long as it's technically legal." Emma met his eyes. "I was one of those workers. I know what it's like to be invisible, to be used up and thrown away. I can't be the person who makes others feel that way. Michael was quiet for a long moment. Even if it cost you your job. Emma, if we take this financial hit, there will be layoffs. Your position could be one of them. Emma felt fear grip her heart. Going back to poverty, to struggling, to 3 jobs and no sleep. The thought terrified her. But then she remembered standing on that street corner 6 months ago, choosing truth over safety. Some prices are worth paying, she said softly. My daughter is watching how I live my life. I'd rather show her what courage looks like than what comfort looks like. Michael smiled a real, genuine smile. You know what, Emma? You're absolutely right. 2 days later, Harrison Technologies announced they were severing their relationship with Chen Manufacturing and implementing new ethical sourcing standards across all suppliers. The stock took a hit. The financial analysts criticized the decision. But something else happened, too. Workers from Chen Manufacturing went public with their stories, corroborating everything the investigation had found. Media outlets picked up the story, praising Harrison Technologies for their integrity. Other companies began reviewing their own supply chains. And 6 months later, when Harrison Technologies announced record profits from clients who specifically chose them because of their ethical standards, Emma sat in her office and cried tears of relief and gratitude. 1 year after the night Emma grabbed a CEO's coat by mistake, she stood in front of 200 Harrison Technologies employees at the annual company meeting. Michael had asked her to speak about the ethics and corporate responsibility program she'd built. But more than that, he'd asked her to share her story. A year ago, Emma began, her voice steady despite her nerves. I was a single mother working 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, and wondering how I was going to afford my daughter's medication. I was invisible. I was struggling. And I was trying every day to teach my daughter that doing the right thing mattered, even when it felt like the world didn't care. She saw faces in the audience, some bored executives, some curious new hires, some people like she used to be, just trying to survive. One night, I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Information about fraud, about environmental violations, about decisions that would hurt innocent people. And I had a choice: stay silent and stay safe, or speak up and risk everything. Emma's voice grew stronger. I chose to speak up, not because I was brave, I was terrified, but because I have a daughter who deserves to grow up in a world where people do the right thing, where integrity matters more than convenience. She told them about the investigation, about losing her cleaning job, about Michael's unexpected offer. She told them about the Chen Manufacturing decision and how it had almost cost her everything she'd gained. Here's what I've learned, Emma said. Courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about choosing what's right, even when you're terrified. Integrity isn't about being perfect. It's about being honest, especially when honesty is hard. She paused, looking out at the faces watching her. Every single person in this room has power. Maybe you're cleaning offices and you think nobody sees you. Maybe you're an executive making million-dollar decisions. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with whatever power you have. We can choose to build companies that value people over profit. We can choose to speak up when we see something wrong. We can choose to create a world where doing the right thing isn't the exception, it's the expectation. The room was silent. My daughter Sophie is 8 now, Emma continued, her voice soft with emotion. Last week she came home from school and told me her friend was being bullied. She said she was scared to tell the teacher because the bully might come after her too. And you know what I told her? Emma smiled. I told her that courage isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what's right even when your hands are shaking. So she went to the teacher. And yes, it was hard, but it was right. That's what I hope we're building here, a place where people can speak truth without fear, where integrity isn't just a word on our mission statement, it's how we operate every single day. The applause started slow, then built. People stood. Emma saw tears on some faces, nods of agreement on others. After the meeting, a young woman approached Emma. She wore a janitorial uniform. Ms. Walsh, she said shyly, I just wanted to say thank you. I'm new here and sometimes I feel like I don't matter. But hearing your story... She trailed off, tears in her eyes. Emma took her hands. You matter. Every single person matters. Don't ever forget that. That evening, Emma picked up Sophie from the after-school program. No more missing bedtime. No more 3 jobs. No more choosing between medication and food. "Mom," Sophie said as they walked home together, "did you really used to clean offices?" "I did," Emma said, "and I was good at it." "Why did you stop?" Emma thought about how to answer. "I didn't stop because there's anything wrong with cleaning. I stopped because someone gave me an opportunity to serve in a different way. But Sophie, the most important thing I did wasn't changing jobs. It was choosing to do what was right, even when it was scary." Sophie was quiet for a moment, like when I told the teacher about the bullying. "Exactly like that," Emma said, pulling her daughter close. "I'm so proud of you." That night, as Emma tucked Sophie into bed in their safe apartment, with medical bills paid and food in the fridge and a future that looked bright, she thought about the coat, about that moment on a cold street corner when she could have walked away. She thought about all the moments since then when she'd had to choose courage over comfort, integrity over ease, and she realized something profound. The coat had never been the important part of the story. What mattered was the choice, the decision to speak up, to stand firm, to do what was right regardless of the cost. "Mom," Sophie said sleepily, "when I grow up, I want to be like you." Emma felt tears sting her eyes. "Baby, you already are." As Sophie drifted off to sleep, Emma sat by her bedside and thought about the words she'd shared that day, about courage and integrity and the power every person holds. She'd started as a single mother just trying to survive. Now she was teaching a company and her daughter how to thrive with honor. And it had all started with a simple choice, to do what was right, even when everything in her life screamed to do what was safe. That choice had changed everything. The story reminds us that integrity isn't about grand gestures. It's about the small choices we make every single day. Emma could have stayed silent. She could have protected herself and walked away, but she chose truth over safety, courage over comfort, and in doing so, she changed not just her own life, but the lives of countless others. True strength isn't found in wealth or power. It's found in the courage to do what's right when no one is watching. It's found in speaking up when staying silent would be easier. It's found in teaching our children through our actions, not just our words, what it means to live with integrity. Whether you're cleaning offices or running companies, you have power. You have a choice. And that choice, to be honest, to be brave, to value people over profit, that choice can change the world. Emma's story teaches us that sometimes the smallest acts of courage create the biggest ripples. A returned coat, a reported conversation, a decision to speak truth to power. These moments define who we are far more than our circumstances do. So the next time you face a choice between what's right and what's easy, remember Emma standing on that cold street corner with trembling hands and a brave heart. Remember that courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It means you do what's right even when you are. If this story inspired you, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of the power of faith, humanity, kindness, and perseverance. Leave a comment telling us about a time when you had to choose courage over comfort. Your story matters, and it might be exactly what someone else needs to hear. Remember, the world doesn't change because of the powerful. It changes because of the brave.